ඔබ සැමට උතුම් දළදා සමුදුන්ගේ ආශිර්වාද ප්‍රාර්ථනා පෙරදැරිව ඓතිහාසික කන්ද උඩරට ඇසල පෙරහැර මහා මංගල්‍යයේ සිව්වන කුඹල් පෙරහැරේ අසිරිය ඔබට ගෙනෙන අපි සියලු කටයුතු සූදානම් කර තිබෙනවා. මල්ලොත් අස්කිරි ඔබේ මහා විහාරීය මහානායක මාහිම්පාණන් වහන්සේලාගේ අවවාද අනුශාසනා පෙරදැරිව ශ්‍රී දළදා මාලිගාවේ ගරු දේවල් නිලමේතුමන් සිව් මහා දේවාලන්හි බස්නායක නිලමේතුමන්ලාගේ සංවිධාන ශක්තියෙන් මේ පෙරහැර සංවිධානය වෙනවා. ඓතිහාසික කන්ද උඩරට ඇසල පෙරහැර මහා මංගල්‍ය උඩරට නර්තන සම්ප්‍රදායේ නර්තනාංගෙන් විචිත්‍රවත්ව ඇලියත් සේනාවන්ගෙන් සපිරිව පෙරහැර වීදි සරනවා. මේ සෙන්කඩගල නුවර පෙරහැර විසිතුරු නැරඹීම සඳහා අද වන විටත් බොහෝ ජනකායක් මේ පෙරහැර වීදිවට පැමිණ තිබෙනවා. නිවසේ සිටින ඔබට අපි මේ පෙරහැර විසිතුර ගෙනෙන සජීවීව ගෙනෙන සියලු කටයුතු සූදානම් කර තිබෙනවා. POTV නාලිකාංක 20 සහ ඩයලොග් නාලිකාංක 140 සහ ෆ්‍රීසෙට් නාලිකාංක 2 ඔස්සේ ඔබට මේ පෙරහැර විසිතුර නරඹන්න පුළුවන්. ඒත් එක්කම ශ්‍රී දළදා මාලිගාවේ සමාජ ජාල වෙබ් අඩවි ඔස්සේ ඔබට මේ පෙරහැර විසිතුර නැරඹීමට අවස්ථාව තියෙනවා. ඒ නිසාවෙන් අපි ඔබට ඉතාමත් ගෞරවයෙන් ආරාධනා කරනවා මේ වෙසෙස් වූ මහා සංස්කෘතික මංගල්‍ය අසිරිය සජීවීව විඳ ගැන්මට. අරුණි
Kandy Esala Perahera 2022 நான்காவது நாள் கும்பால் பெரஹரா வீதி வலம் வருவதற்காக தயாராக உள்ளது. ஸ்ரீ தலனா மாளிகை ஊடகம் ஊடாக உங்கள் அனைவரையும் பெரஹராவை காண்பதற்காக அன்புடன் அழைக்கின்றோம்.
The glory, the color, the prestige. Kandy Esala Perahera is known for even more throughout centuries by the entire world. Commence right now is the 4th Kumbal Procession of Esala Perahera 2022. And we, as the Media Bureau of Sri Dalada Maligawa, would like to extend our heartfelt invitation for all of you to witness this prestigious city of Kandy in the hill country and witness this colorful extravaganza through your own eyes. And if you are watching this live exclusively right now, stay tuned with us because you are about to witness the best scenario of the day.
Dalada Samidu Pihitai. We are delighted to welcome you to the special live broadcast of the 4th Kumbal Procession, brought to you by the Media Bureau of the Sri Dalada Maligawa. You are now seeing the Perahar officials obtaining the permission and blessings of the Devadana Nilame, the lay custodian of the sacred tooth relic, before commencing their street perambulations. This is the handing over of keys by the Devadana Nilame to the officiating bhikkhus. And now, the Devadana Nilame is making his way from the upper level or the Ihalamalaya to the lower level of the temple of the tooth relic. And now, the Deputy Chief Sanganayaka of the Askiri Mahaviharaya, Venerable Vendaruwe Upalitheru, will be gloriously carrying the sacred Perahara casket over to the ceremonial tusker. As you can see, the Perahara casket is taken under much veneration, offering light, sounds, scents and flowers all the way from the upper floor till it's placed on the awaiting tusker. What you are seeing now is the Perahara casket, which contains 32 relics of Lord Buddha being placed within the Ranhilige, mounted on the lavishly costumed tusker, who will add color and glamour to this 4th Kumbal Procession. We see the Perahar officials offering flowers and garlands to the Perahara casket. And this is the devout moment when the great tusker steps majestically down from the Mahavaharkada, the main entrance, to the Sandagala, the moonstone, in preparation to parade the streets of the city. And today, the royal tusker will be Indiraja, belonging to the Sri Dalada Maligawa stables. What you are now seeing are the aerial images of the sacred tooth relic of the Sri Dalada Maligawa. This evening, the 4th Kumbal Perahar will be parading down the Dalada Vidya, Kotugodella Vidya and the Raja Vidya, and now walking up front with the sound of whips piercing through the skies are the whip crackers, who will be announcing that the procession has started and the whip master is clearing the way for the sacred casket and the king. In the ancient times, it was the ruling king who would parade in the streets, but now it's the Devadana Nilame, the lay custodian of the sacred tooth relic, for whom the streets are being cleared. It is also believed that the sound of the whip cracking depicts the sound of thunder and lightning, paying homage to rain gods, requesting to bless our crops and cultivations with rain. The whip, which is 2 meters long, has to be carefully manipulated without hurting their colleagues or the onlookers. The whip master's duty is handed down from generation to generation of their clans. Only those who have mastered the art of whip cracking will be taken for the grand Randoli procession. And this evening, this troop of whip wielders are being led by Mr. Upali Jayaratna. According to the traditions, a Perahara who does not have this pedigree are not even being worth being called such. Many onlookers will throw thousands of coins to the streets in the belief that this will ward off any evil from their loved ones and for blessings from the sacred tooth relic. Over the past 2 years, we were not able to see the usual spectators flocking around the streets of Kandy to witness this traditional and cultural celebration. But this year, we are fortunate to see the usual livelihood of the streets back here under the skies of Kandy. This is a beautiful tradition that highlights the basis for giving, offering, and sharing among the people of our land. Sri Lankans are among the top in the world in giving index. That is indeed the influence of the teachings of Lord Buddha. And regardless of how rich or poor they are, they offer coins in great devotion and joy to the Perahar, as their minds are unconditioned to giving. And now, followed by the whip wielders, we are seeing the fire dancers. Rain does not come with thunder alone. Just as lightning flashes across the skies, the procession or Perahar too has its flashes of light dancing across the faces of people lining the streets to watch. This is the offering of fire, inviting the rain gods to water our lands with rain. The lightning, which comes with the rains, a phenomenon of nature, is magnificently depicted by these group of fireball dancers. The turning of fireballs is called Pandam Palia, which paints the night with varied patterns of light, illuminating the procession. The sun, moon, earth, universe, solar month, night and day are all cyclic, and the fire dancers highlight these universal cycles and how they burn and cool us in our life cycles. The splendor of the dance is seen when a large group of them perform simultaneously, merging their various fiery elements into an amazing display of light and heat. The tradition is handed down from generation to generation, with individuals of all ages, from the very young to the very old, taking part in the display of the priceless and cultural heritage of their clan. And this evening, this troupe of fire dancers are led by Mr. E.D. Tilakaratna. The fiery cycle of samsara, flooded with desire, ignorance and anger, is highlighted by the chakras painted by these fire dancers. The fire dancers need to be completely focused in their mind and body and immersed in their act, as they create their cyclic patterns of fire. This is because the slightest inattentive move could result in disaster. The dancers, being mindful of the part fire plays in cooking, protecting crops and henas, and dispelling darkness, tame the fire and give it as a Dalada offering, while curing curiosity, satisfaction, and amazement onto the onlookers. The dancers are seen creating their paintings of fire across the night sky as they move in the procession. For the children, it is a fire play, and for the experienced elders, it is a devout, committed fire offering. Next in line in the procession is the Buddhist flag bearers, clad in white national costumes, carrying the Buddhist flags, preceded by the national flag of Sri Lanka. The sight of the Buddhist flag creates a sense of tranquility on the onlookers, reminding them that this is in celebration, devotion, and an offering to the Lord Buddha and Bodhi, his understanding of the Dhamma. The Buddhist flag is a symbol of faith and peace. 6 colors of the flag represent the colors of the aura that emanated from the body of the Lord Buddha when he attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. The horizontal strips represent the races of the world living in harmony, while the vertical strips represent eternal world peace. The colors represent the perfection of Buddhahood and Dhamma. Blue for universal compassion, yellow for the middle path, red for blessings, white for purity and liberation, orange for the unshakable wisdom. And this evening, the troop of flag bearers are represented by the open prison camp of Pallekele. And next in line, we are seeing the sword bearers represented by the Angampura team of the Sri Lanka Air Force. The calm, collected, disciplined sword carriers join the procession to provide protection to the Perahar casket. They are clad in a white dhoti and a white headdress, carrying the race swords, but not in warfare, but a disciplined walk of calm serenity. These sword bearers symbolize the protection given to the tooth relic over the history. Those who know the history of the tooth relic would be proud of our history and the heroes who protected the sacred tooth relic at all times. Since ancient times, the sacred tooth relic has played an important role in local politics because it was believed that whoever holds the sacred tooth relic holds the governance of the country. from the Anuradhapura era to the Kandy or the Senkadagalapura era, there has been few battles over the Tooth Relic, and it was always protected by these patriotic warriors. And this is a lesson we need to teach our children, something to be proud of, and also that if not for them, then we would have lost the sacred Tooth Relic. And following the sword carriers, we are now seeing the Peramunerala. The duty of the Peramunerala leading the elephant procession is to inform the citizens of the country that the procession is being carried out in accordance with the directives of the scroll. And the elephant leading the Perahar today will be Banda, belonging to the Honourable Diyavadana Nilame of the Shri Dalada Maligawa, Pradeep Nilanga Dala. This scroll is made of ola leaves. It contains in great detail the worship traditions and rituals to the sacred relic, as well as information on the processions of the Dalada Maligawa and its royal duties. This elephant Banda is one of the most senior elephants who will be walking in this Perahar this evening. And the speciality of Banda is that he was one of the few elephants who walked all the way to Kandy from Ratnapura to attend this year's Perahar festival. And now we are seeing the official Havisi group of the Shri Dalada Maligawa. These lines are the 4 Havisi drum beaters who are permanently seconded to the service of the Shri Dalada Maligawa. Their presence in front of the procession is a tradition, and they perform with a majestic skill. In fact, no Panchaturya Vadana or traditional orchestra of Sinhala music or making musical sounds using either drums or other instruments is permitted before them. This Havisi group, presenting the traditional orchestra of Sinhala music or Panchaturya Vadana using Panchaturya Banda or the 5/4 music instruments, including the dao, tammatam, hand cymbals and horanava, which is a traditional Sri Lankan horn, are played together to create a symphonic sound. This is a sign to the most skilled Havisi generations of the temple to ensure the instruments are played in the correct order, and the most skilled Havisi drummers lineages of the Shri Dalada Maligawa, namely Uduwela, Malagamala, Ihalavela and Molagoda, are represented in the first row serenely marching to the beat of the drums. They are contributing with great devotion to the celebration. The four leaders depict the recognition given to them by the king through the ways in which they decorate their heavy drums. The drums are being incorporated to make the unique sound, and we hear the beats of the drums and the tunes of the Horanava, the traditional Sri Lankan horn, soaring up to the skies up above the Senkaragala kingdom. Sri Lanka is rich in its authentic forms of music, not just confined to one culture. In fact, the culture of traditional Sri Lankan music is divided into the traditions of upcountry, low country and suburban, where the Kandy Esala Perahera will only be showcasing the rich and the most embedded culture of the upcountry tradition of music. The unique tune that is played by these Havisi instrumentalists is known as the Gajagavanama, or in other words, the Symphony of the Elephant. In fact, the lyrics of this symphony will depict the beauty of the royal elephant, which is the ceremonious reason why the troop of Havisi is being preceded in front of the official carrying the Gajanayaka Nilame, or the official in charge of the royal troop of elephants. After 5 days of internal Perahera processions, we are here in the series of the Kumbal Procession, where we have almost reached the 4th evening, where we will be having one more Kumbal Procession, and which will pave the way for the much awaited Randoli Perahar processions. And now we can see the Gajanayaka Nilame with his silver anchors or Hindua majestically approaching on his tusker. The Gajanayaka Nilame, as mentioned before, is the royal official in charge of the king's troop of elephants, and it was a position given to him directly by the king himself. And this majestic tusker is Raja, belonging to Venerable Alutnuwara Anuruddha Nayaka Thero, the chief incumbent of the Kotte Rajamaha Viharaya. Raja, who is much popular by the name Kotte Raja, is one of the most promising and usual participants of the Kandy Esala Perahera since his arrival to Sri Lanka from Myanmar in the year 2012. It is the tradition of the Kumbal Procession procession that the Gajanayaka Nilame will be dressed in plain white attire and a silver anchors, where this will be replaced with a coloured attire and a gold anchors in the Randoli Perahar processions. The streets of Kandy are being lit by these traditional dances of Kopra, and now we are seeing the arrival of the Charmander Dance Act, represented by Mr. Nimesh Sumanaratna of the Chandananda Buddhist College in Kandy. A popular folk dance that symbolizes fanning is Charmander. The white tassels are fanned to a rhythm, and the slight breeze it produces brings a pleasant feeling. And this was a regular feature in the royal courts in ancient times. The Charmander dancers hold white-colored tassels in both hands and wear colorful costumes. They dance in a group and move up and down the streets as if they are fanning the upcoming Perahera casket. As per the Salalihini Sandesha, a poetry in the Kotte period, white tussles in motion and majestic elephants are considered an auspicious sign. It is believed that these tussles are made from the tail of the Semara deer who lives all the way in the hills of Himalayas, and it is also believed that the breeze blown by these tussles are being known as one of the most coolest forms of breeze that one can experience in this world. And now we are seeing the third elephant of this evening's Kumbal Perahar. An official carrying a Buddhist flag will be on the mount of this tusker to symbolize that this is truly a Buddhist festival. And this tusker is Pulatisi Raja, belonging to the stable of the Shri Dalada Maligawa. In fact, Pulatisi Raja is the latest addition to the stable of the Shri Dalada Maligawa, who owns 9 tuskers and 3 elephants. Pulatisi Raja had been a gift from the government of Myanmar in the year 2017. And now we are seeing the Nayandi dance troupe led by Mr. Saman Nilvita. Nayandi is in fact the name of this particular costume, consisting of the lower part of the vest costume, but the headgear being replaced by a symbol turban known as the Jataval in Sinhalese. The art of vest dancing is considered as the most majestic style of dance in the upcountry tradition of cultural dancing, and Adaves or Nayandi is the half costume which represents the first level of the dance. In fact, any person who wishes to excel themselves as a traditional dancer in Sri Lanka will first have to master the art of Nayandi and then proceed as a West dancer. And now here we are seeing a duo of elephants with officials carrying snakehead canopies to symbolize protection to the impending approach of the sacred tooth relic. And these two elephants are Punchi Banda, belonging to Mr. Kitsiri Mevan Velagedara of Panaliya, and Raja, belonging to Mrs. Sita Senanayaka Mallava of Hettimulla. In fact, Raja and Punchi Banda have been two close friends who have been parading next to each other in the Kandy Esala Perahera for many years since 2016. Regardless of modern technology, during the Perahera season, it is with these copra lights that we can see the streets of Kandy being illuminated with light. And now we are seeing the Panther Dance performance that is led by Mr. Palita Hapugoda. We see this group of Panther dancers chanting away through the procession. Panther is an essential Buddhist dance form which grew within the rich and fertile Buddhist cultural atmosphere. They in fact recite poems to accompany their dance form, according to the traditions of the Panther dance rituals. Following this Panther dance, we are seeing a duo of young tuskers, Singharaja belonging to the Shri Dalada Maligawa stables and Sindhu belonging to the most venerable Mahanayaka Thero of the Malvatta chapter, Venerable Thippatuave Shri Siddhartha Sumangala Thero. And on the mount of Sindhu and Singharaja, we are seeing two officials carrying brass umbrellas to symbolize cover to the impending sacred tooth relic of Lord Buddha. And we are now here in the much awaited moment of the Kandy Esala Perahera 4th Kumbal Procession. The arrival of the royal tusker carrying the Perahera casket containing the sacred tooth relics of Lord Buddha, and this trio of ceremonial tuskers are being escorted by these majestic West dancers. The most unique and most recognized of the Kandian dance heritage is this fully adorned West Natua, or the Kandian dancer. The Kandian dancer's skill and dance form have been considered an expression of Sri Lankan culture. The West dance is more than just a ritual. It is in fact a sacred recitation for protection against misfortune. Therefore, the dancer's costume is also considered sacred. These traditional West dancers have their roles passed on from generation to generation, and these troops of West dancers are being represented by Ishantha Ihalavela and Lasantha Wansekara. And now we are seeing the Karya Karavana Korala walking in front of the ceremonial tusker. It's the Karya Karavana Korala who is dressed in his official white clothes and red headdress. And now we are seeing the much awaited, most glorified moment of this 4th Kumbal Perahera, the arrival of the royal tusker carrying the Perahar relic casket. And this evening, the relic casket is being carried by Indiraja, the leader of the Sri Dalada Maligawa stables. And this evening, Indiraja is being accompanied by Miyan Raja and Buruma Raja, also belonging to the Sri Dalada Maligawa stables. And in front of the ceremonial tusker, we are seeing the traditional troupe of Nagasingham players, a traditional Indian influenced orchestra that play their tunes in honor to the impending tooth relics. A glamorous feature among these royal tuskers is this costume, tailored according to the traditional batik handicraft. We are now seeing the splendor of the esplanade of the Sri Dalada Maligawa in its aerial view, the city that is gloriously lit up to host the 4th Kumbal Perahera of 2022. And this is the Kavikara Maduwa, or the Chamber of Versifiers. Just after the ceremonial tusker, we are seeing these versifiers of the Shri Dalada Maligawa, who are chanting phrases of Lord Buddha. In the ancient times of the kings, these chamber of versifiers sang to the king. But today, in the most serene manner, they chant the virtues of the Buddha, playing the silver Udeki, silver Pantheru, and instruments which are given to them by the king. Following these chamber of versifiers, we are now seeing the arrival of the second troop of West dancers who will be escorting the Diyavadana Nilame, who will be walking in the streets of Kandy under the Kandian skies in this fourth Kumbal Procession. This most glamorous costume symbolically represents the regalia of kings Malaya, the royal brothers who performed to the ancient rituals of the Hatapas Mangalya, a ceremony that was held 2500 years ago. The headgear, symbolizing the sun rays with the semicircular frontpiece, is known as the Sikha Bandhana. In the ancient times, the West dancers obtained a royal honor after they dispelled unseen inimical forces that threatened the life of the king of Panduvasnuwara. This troupe of West dancers are being represented by the generations of the Verapitiya and the Surasena families. They are being trained by the current incumbents Sanjeeva Verapitiya and Peter Surasena. In fact, this will be the final item of West dancing that we will be seeing today in the 4th Kumbal Perahar, as the latter part of the procession will be guarded by the Nayandi dancers, who will be represented by the West dancers in the Randoli Perahar processions that we will be seeing in the forthcoming days. One may assume that these performers are being parading in this procession in return for a monetary or other benefit, but the reality is that all of these performers consider it their biggest prestige to perform in this Perahar. And now, representing the Diyavadana Nilame, we see the Honourable Basnayaka Nilame of the Shrimah Kataragama Devala in Kandy, Honourable Kamunu Wali Sundara. It is the tradition that the Basnayaka Nilame of the Shrimah Kataragama Devala in Kandy will be representing the Diyavadana Nilame on the 4th Kumbal Perahara. And as per the customs, we are seeing the Honourable Basnayaka Nilame being dressed in royal white attire to symbolize the charm atmosphere of the series of Kumbal Perahara. It is only the Diyavadana Nilame or his representation who is permitted to walk under a Mutukuda or the pearl umbrella, since he represents the king himself in the procession. In fact, he is the only person who has a canopy apart from the Dalada casket itself. This marks the end of the Dalada Perahara as we move on to the commencement of the Shrimah Nata Devala Perahara. We are now seeing pictures of the godly ornaments of God Nata being veneratably carried out from the shrine of God Nata to be placed on the ceremonial elephant who will be carrying the requiliaries. We are now seeing the officials carrying the Buddhist flags representing the commencement of the Shrimah Nata Devala Perahar, and these flag bearers are being represented by the Civil Defence Authority of Pallekele. God Nata, who is also believed as Maitri Bodhisattva, is the god who is believed to attain Buddhahood next. Therefore, it is the very reason why the procession of God Nata will be following the procession of the Dalada Maligawa. Another speciality when it comes to the belief of God Nata is that God Nata is of a Buddhist origin, which is the main reason why we see Buddhist flags being led in the commencement of the Perahar. And now we see the official heavy troop of the Shrimah Nata Devala, who are being led by Mr. S.Y.G. Vijayasena. One may assume that the heavy troop of the Shrimah Nata Devala is quite similar to the heavy troop we saw previously in the procession of the Sri Dalada Maligawa. But in fact, this heavy troop is recognized in playing the tunes that are unique in the offering or the Devala towards God Nata. Among the instruments that are used in the Panchaturenadya, we are seeing the Daula, the Thammatuna, the Horanava and the Thala, representing the icons of Vitata, meaning the drums played only with sticks, as per the Thammatuna. The Vitatatata, the drums that are played using hand and the stick, such as the Daula which you see in front, the Horanava in the Gana icon, and then we have the Thala representing the Sushira element. followed by these heavy sea instrumentalists, we are seeing the first elephant of the Shrimah Nata Devala Perahar, carrying an official holding the flag of Senkadagala, which is also known as the flag of God Nata. And this elephant leading the procession of God Nata this evening is none other than Rohana. Rohana belongs to Mr. Varuna Kannangara of Horana. And in fact, the Kannangara family has been holding a very special place in the procession of God Nata since history, including the famous Kadapitiya Tusker who belonged to them, who carried the requilleries of God Nata in the Kandy Esala Perahera many decades ago, and which is the same reason why we see the last elephant Rohana leading the procession this evening. Following Rohana, now we see the Thalam dance performers who are trained by the Dilenataru Aesthetic Academy by Mr. Nimal Jayasinghe. Although we noticed the Thalama in the previous heavy sea troops, it is a special feature that we see the Thalama as a dance performance for the first time in this 4th Kumbal Perahara. The Thalam dance is in fact a popular form of dance that is found in many parts of Sri Lanka. Following this artistic Thalam dance performance, we are now seeing the second elephant of the Sri Maha Nata Devala procession carrying the flag of the Buddhists, and this elephant is Kandula, belonging to Mr. Roshan Patirana of Maharagama. The procession of God Nata is never complete without the presence of Kandula, who has been taking part in the procession of God Nata ever since the year 2012. And now, following Kandula, we are seeing the Panther Dance act that is trained by Mr. Asanka Karunaratna. This instrument, known as the Pantherua, was an icon that we previously noticed in the Kavikara Maduva or the Chamber of Versifiers. But just like the Thalam dance act we saw previously, even this Pantherua is being used as a dance item in this part of the procession. The Pantherua is an instrument that is used quite often in the tradition of upcountry dancing, and it is believed that the most authentic form of Pantherua dancing can only be seen in the Kandy Esala Perahera, and this is the elephant Bibila belonging to Mr. Udara Galapatti of Giriyulla, And on Bibila's mount we see two officials carrying brass stands representing the sun and the moon to symbolize that the tradition of the Perahar will continue till the eternal existence of the sun and the moon. And now we see the Udeki Dance performance that is trained by Miss Indra Kumari of the Sarasavi Aesthetic Academy of Wattegama. The Udeki is a hand drum and holds a special place in the Dalada celebrations. It is also played in the daily rituals of the sacred tooth relic. Following the Udeki dance performance, we now see the elephant Bandara belonging to Mr. Kamal Kitsiri of Kottava. And now we reach the most iconic moment of the Shri Maha Nata Devala procession, the trio of ceremonial elephants who will be carrying the godly ornaments of God Nata. And this sacred moment is being escorted by these Nayandi dancers. Usually it is the practice that the godly ornaments or the ceremonial elephant will be welcomed and escorted by West dancers. But in the series of the Kumbal Procetions, the West dancers will be replaced by these Nayandi or the other West dancers. We are now seeing these Nayandi dancers performing one of the most iconic episodes of the West dance, which was known as the Narumatra. These Nayandi dancers are being represented by Mr. Vishnude Srinath Verapitiya of the Vishnude Dance Academy. We now see the chief prelate or the chief trustee of the Shri Mahanatha Devalaya walking in front of the ceremonial elephant, and today the godly ornaments of God Nata are being majestically carried by Vijitaraja belonging to the Dimbulagala Rajamahawihare of Polonnaruwa, and he is accompanied by Kumari belonging to Mr. Kamal Irugal Bandar of Kottava and Parami belonging to Mr. Samantha Vijayamanna of Medagoda. That marks the end of the Shri Mahanatha Devala Perahara, and now we are seeing the commencement of the Shri Maha Vishnu Devala Perahara. You are now seeing the devout moment when the godly ornaments of God Vishnu are being carried out from the Shri Maha Vishnu Devala shrine towards the ceremonial tusker who will be carrying the godly ornaments this evening. The procession of God Vishnu is playing a major role in the Kandy Esala Perahera, as it was previously known as the Maha Devala, who is always recognized for having the second longest and the second most visible Perahar after the Dalada Maligawa procession. We are now seeing the arrival of the provincial and state flag bearers. God Vishnu is assigned by Lord Buddha as the protector of Sri Lanka, which is the main reason why we see provincial and state flags replacing the Buddhist flags, unlike the previous Perahara segments we saw before, in order to symbolize that God Vishnu is the protector of all these provinces and states of Sri Lanka. And now we see the first elephant of the Shrimah Vishnude Perahara, with the official carrying the flag of the Satara Koralaya, which is known as the headquartered region of God Vishnu. And this elephant, who is also from the Satara Koralaya, is Suranimala, belonging to the Alutnura Dadimunda Devala, which is a connected shrine to the Sri Maha Vishnu Devala in Kandy. Suranimala, named after one of the most prominent giants accompanying King Dutugamon in the history of Sri Lanka, was gifted to the Alutnura Dadimunda Devala in the year 2017. And following Suranimala, we now see the official heavy troop of the Sri Maha Vishnu Devala. As mentioned in the segment of the Shri Nata Devala, the heavy troop of the Sri Maha Vishnu Devala will be playing the unique tunes that are iconic and unique to the Devala, or the offerings towards God Vishnu. In history, the Shri Maha Vishnu Devalaya had been replaced by the Shri Alutnuara Devalaya, dedicated to God Dadimunda, and with time it had been converted to a shrine dedicated to God Vishnu, which is the Perahar which we see right now. But still, the Dadimunda Devalaya can be still seen located left to the Shri Maha Vishnu Devala premises. And interestingly, the Shri Maha Vishnu Devalaya in Kandy holds a very prominent speciality in the Kandy Esala Perahera, including the division of the cup or the young jack tree, which is used in the cup situima, or the planting of the jack plant in order to signify the commencement of the Kandy Esala Perahera, and the Waliak dance, which is a traditional upcountry dance performance that is performed in the premises of the Shri Maha Vishnu Devalaya over 5 nights after the conclusion of the day Perahara, in order to ward off all evil and evil eye that has been grasped into the festival. And now, following the Hevisi troop, we are seeing the second elephant of the Shri Maha Vishnu Devalaya, who is Mutubanda, belonging to Venerable Murundeniye Dhammaratana Theru, the chief incumbent of the Mutyangana Rajamaha Viharaya in Mutyangana Badula. The Mutyangana Rajamaha Viharaya in Badula had been a place which is considered as the 16 holy sites that Lord Buddha had visited in his visits to Sri Lanka, and Mutubanda is currently the senior elephant belonging to the stable of the Mutyangana Rajamaha Viharaya. And following Mutu, we see another Nayanti dance performance. As the drums beat, the dancer moves his hands, feet and body in perfect harmony with the fellow performers until the crescendo of his performance, which everyone in the audience awaits in anticipation. The backflips, acrobatics and leaps are indeed spellbinding. This is called the Narumatra, one of the most iconic moments of the West and the Nayandi dance performance, which they perform by holding both ends of their loincloth and dancing to the beat of the Gajagavanama. And now we are seeing two of the most young elephants who will be taking part in the procession. Abe Raja, belonging to Mr. L.K. Vanyarachi of Kotte, and Vastu, belonging to Mr. Pradeep Miyanapalava of Mavanella. And indeed, Abe Raja and Vastu are two of the most young and the most promising participants of the Shri Maha Vishnude Devala procession this year. Following Abe Raja and Vastu, we are now seeing a Savarang dance performance. Even though the Savarang dance performance is much similar to the Charmander dance performance which we saw previously in the Dalada Perahar, the difference of the instrument is that the Charmander will have the tussle attached only in one end, but the Savarang will have two tussles attached to both ends of the instrument. We can see the color blue attached to the Perahar in many forms, and the reason behind is that God Vishnu is believed to be dark blue in complexion, which is the main reason why most of the icons in this Perahar is been colored in the many shades of blue. And now we are seeing a trio of elephants. In the middle we have Banda belonging to Mr. Sisira Samarakon of Polgavela, who is accompanied by Muthu belonging to Mr. Indika Mudunkot of Manikinna, and Choti Manike belonging to Mr. Bharata Amaratunga of Meegoda. A speciality of the Shri Maha Vishnu Devala Perahara are these groups of tuskers which we don't see often in other parts of the Perahara, where the Shri Maha Vishnu Devalaya never fails to provide the groups of tuskers walking majestically in the streets of Kandy. And now we are seeing the most iconic moment of the Shri Maha Vishnu Devala procession, which is the arrival of the ceremonial tusker carrying the godly ornaments of God Vishnu, and the tusker is escorted majestically by these Nayandi dancers. The dancers are required to observe the traditional rituals and obtain permission to dance in the procession. However, those who dance at today's Grand Randoli Perahera and the Dalada Perahera are those who have brought a samsaric habit and the skill in the performance of this art form. And now, led by the chief trustee of the Shrimah Vishnude in Kandy, we see the approach of the ceremonial tusker Rama carrying the godly ornaments of God Vishnu sitting in the Ranhilige, and Rama is accompanied by Vasana belonging to Mrs. Krishanti Alapatha of Ratnapura and Sita belonging to Mrs. Nilanti Veerasinghe of Mirigama. The loving combination between Rama, Sita and Vasana have been playing a beautiful role in the Sri Maha Vishnu Devala procession ever since the year 2015. Marking the end of the procession of God Vishnu, now we see the arrival or the commencement of the Shri Maha Kataragama Devala Perahara. We are seeing the moment in which the godly ornaments of God Kataragama will be most venerably carried out of the shrine to be placed on the ceremonial elephant, who will be carrying the requiraries this evening. And this evening, the ceremonial elephant of the Sri Maha Kataragama Devalaya will be Sankaraja from Emilipitiya. And now we are seeing the flag bearers of the Sri Maha Kataragama Devalaya being led by the flag of King Ravana, then followed by the Buddhist flags, and finally the flags depicting the peacock, which is known as the flag of God Kataragama. And these flag bearers are represented by Mr. Dilan Chaturanga Ratnayaka. It is believed that God Kataragama or God Skanda has been assigned by Lord Buddha as the protector of Buddhism, which is the reason why we see Buddhist flags being carried in this part of the procession, despite the fact that Lord Kataragama or God Skanda is of Hindu origin. We see the peacock being displayed in the flags being carried by these officials, since the peacock is believed to be the vehicle of God Kataragama. Following the flag bearers, we now see the official Hevisi troop of the Sri Maha Kataragama Devalaya, who are led by Mr. P.V. James Gurnansi. The Sri Maha Kataragama Devalaya in Kandy is the only Devala shrine among the four gods that is located outside of the Sri Dalada Maligawa premises out in the Kotugadalla Vidya, which was previously known as the Kavikara Vidya of Kandy. Even though the headquartered place of worship for God Kataragama is popularly recognized as the Ruhunu Maha Kataragama Devalaya, located deep down south in the district of Monaraga in Sri Lanka. The Sri Maha Kataragama Devalaya in Kandy too is one of the most renowned places of worship for God Kataragama, in the reason that any person who walks down the town of Kandy or the Kotugudalla Vidya will never fail a visit to the Kataragama Devalaya to pay their respect and obtain blessings from the noble Lord of God Kataragama. Interestingly, the Esala Perahera festival of the Ruhunu Maha Kataragama Devalaya too is happening at this exact time, where the wedding ceremony between Lord Kataragama and his consort Valli is being celebrated for nearly 14 days of celebration, while the procession of the Shri Maha Kataragama Devalaya in Kandy is to symbolize respect and as an annual Teva offering towards God Kataragama. And now, followed by the Hevisi troop, we are seeing the Gajanayaka Nilame of the Sri Maha Kataragama Devalaya, Banuka Kempitiya, who is on the mount of Manike, also from the Kempitiya family of Kegol, belonging to Mr. Anuratissa Kempitiya. The Kempitiya family in Kegol is one of the most prominent families when it comes to the legend of domestic elephants in Sri Lanka, and Manike is the last elephant that is living in the home of the Kempitiya Valavuwa in Kegol. And now we see an energetic Thalam dance performance, which is trained and led by Miss Ajanta Kandegedara of the Sarasavi Aesthetic Academy of Kegol. The Thalama, which is known as the castanet, was previously seen in the Hevisi troop as an instrument of the Ghana variant, but here we see it as a dance performance. Even though the Thalampita or the castanet is recognized as a dance performance, the role of the Thalampita is quite essential in the traditional style of dancing, due to the reason that it is used as the timekeeping object of dancing, which is known in Sinhalese as the Titmatra. We can see how the instruments of the Dalada, the Horanava, and the Tammatama or the kettle drum is being used to add energy to the Thalam dance. And now we see an official carrying a brass umbrella to protect covering to the impending approach of the godly ornaments of God Kataragama. And this elephant is Raju, belonging to Mr. Chamila Bandaranayaka of Gannuru. The elephant of Gannurua, who was previously parading in the very same Sri Maha Kataragama Devalaya, was once the tallest elephant of the Southeast Asian region. And now we see another interesting dance performance powered by the tunes of this Dandubere and the Horanava and the kettle drum known as the Thammatama, which is the wood tapping dance known as the Likeli dance performance that is trained by Mr. Upali Dharmaratna of the Upali Dharmaratna Aesthetic Academy of Matale. Unlike in the previous parts of the procession, the dance items of the Shrimah Kataragama Devala is of a fast tempo due to the very reason that the offerings towards God Kataragama are mainly based on energy and sweat. Following this youthful Likeli dance act, we are seeing the brotherly elephants Ratna and Chula, belonging to the most venerable Bengamue Dhammadinna Thero, the chief incumbent of the Spelmadulla Rajamaha Vihare in Ratnapura. And now we see another Udeki dance performance, which we see for the first time in the procession of God Kataragama. And this dance act is being trained by Mr. Dhammika Bandara Tennakon of the Dhammika Tennakon Aesthetic Academy of Napana. The Udeki is a hand drum and holds a very special place in Dalada celebrations, as it is a tool that provides a steady beat or note to the Kavikara Madhu or chanting group. The dancers in the middle, forming what is known as the Udeki Gataya, the knot with the long stripes of the Udekia, is used to modulate the sounds of the drum. And now we see another elephant walking with two officials carrying a brass umbrella and a snakehead canopy to provide protection to the impending godly ornaments of God Kataragama. And this young elephant is Sudumanike, belonging to Mr. Buddhika Mirihalla of Hingula in Kaduganna. With the youthful walk of Sudumanike, we now come to the most awaited moment of the Shrimah Kataragama Devala procession, the arrival of the ceremonial elephant carrying the godly ornaments of God Kataragama, who will be escorted by these Nayandi dancers who are trained by Mr. Upananda Talgahagoda of the Ratna Aesthetic Academy. It is an interesting fact to note that the complete use of upcountry traditional dance acts are seen in the procession of the Shrimah Kataragama Devala Perahera only in the series of the Kumbal Processions, where once we move on to the Randoli Perahera processions, we are delighted to see the influence of South Indian culture with a variety of fast-paced South Indian dance and music items added to this part of the procession. And now we are seeing the arrival of the ceremonial elephant carrying the godly ornaments of God Kataragama. Today the ceremonial elephant will be Sankaraja, belonging to Venerable Kokavala Kosala Thero, the chief incumbent of the Sankapala Rajamahawihare in Amilipitiya, who is accompanied by Esala, belonging to Venerable Katugastuta Sharada Thero, the chief incumbent of the Senanayaka Mudalindarama temple of Pirisyala, and Aruna, belonging to Venerable Higguda Saddhananda Thero, the former, the late chief incumbent of the Handala Rajamahawihara. And an interesting personality walking right in front of us, ahead of the ceremonial elephant, is the Iyer of the Shrimah Kataragama Devalaya, who is of South Indian origin, which once again proves the fact that the Kandy Esala Perahera is a truly cultural celebration of many different cultures in the world. While that marks the end of the Shrimah Kataragama Devala Perahera, we are now moving on to the final episode of the fourth Kumbal Procession, which is the procession of the Shrimah Pattini Devalaya. And now we are seeing pictures of the Perahar officials, including the Vasnayaka Nilame, the Alatti Ammas, and the chief trustee, bringing out the godly ornaments and statue of Goddess Pattini to be placed on the yellow adorned majestic elephant Mangala of Giriyulla, who will be carrying the godly ornaments this evening. We are now seeing the first troop of flag bearers of the Shrimah Pattini Devala Perahara, who will be represented by the Civil Defence Authority as the leading item of the Shrimah Pattini Devala Perahara this evening. Now we are seeing the official Hevisi troop of the Shrimah Pattini Devalaya walking up front in the fourth Kumbal procession. Every single Devala shrine, including the Shri Dalada Maligawa itself, has its own official instrumentalists of Hevisi, since Hevisi is one of the key forms of musical offering towards the sacred tooth relic of Lord Buddha and the four gods who will be residing in these shrines as part of their daily, weekly, monthly and yearly rituals that are taking place, and is simply not a musical orchestra that is added to add glamour to the Perahar festival. Just as the Daul and Thammattam performers conclude the troop of Hevisi we are now seeing an official carrying a Buddhist flag on the first elephant this evening, who is Sudu Mahatya, belonging to the magistrate Tilina Gamage of Maharagama. We are now seeing a very special moment in this evening's Perahar as we see a female representation in this female Panther dance performance that is trained by Miss Vindhya Kulasiri of the Jayashani Upcountry Dance Academy of Gorakhadeniya. It is only in the procession of Goddess Pattini that we are able to see female dancers joining the procession, as Goddess Pattini herself is the only goddess that we will be venerating in the Kandy Esala Perahera. The Panther itself has a great connection towards the folklore of Goddess Pattini, where the Panther itself is believed to be the anklet that is worn by Goddess Pattini. Following this glamorous Panther dance performance, we are seeing the elephant Sanju belonging to Mr. Jagat Vitana of Madhugama. Following Sanju, we see a very artistic and energizing dance performance, which we call as the mixed folk dance or the Mishra Jananatuma in Sinhalese. And this dance act is trained by Miss Takshila Sirivardhana of the Takshila Aesthetic Academy of Yatihalagala. The mixed folk dance is a dance act that paints the picture of the traditional agriculture industry of Sri Lanka. As everyone believes, Sri Lanka is a country that is rich in its private sector in economy. Therefore, the industry of agriculture plays a vital role in empowering this primary sector of economic activity in Sri Lanka, and the dance act, including the performers and the props that are used, shows how gender equal and how roles are based on gender in order to equally support uplifting the agriculture industry of Sri Lanka, that is not just important to the economy but is equally important to satisfy the basic need of hunger. And now, following the mixed folk dance, we are seeing Sita belonging to Mr. Roshan Pathirana of Maharagama. Now we are seeing another energetic and glamorous dance act of the Shri Maha Pattini Devala Perahara this evening, which is the Talam dance that is represented by Miss Takshila Sirivardhana of the Takshila Aesthetic Academy of Yatihalagala. And interestingly, this is the second dance act that we see from the Takshila Sirvardhana Academy in this evening's fourth Kumbal Perahera of the Shrimah Pattini Devala in Kandy. Goddess Pattini is known for her belief as the goddess in charge of fertility and chastity. Wherefore, she is a goddess that is well respected and much more popular by the ladies and the young children of Sri Lanka. It is incredibly beautiful to see how a musical instrument can turn itself to be a dance prop, which is the beauty itself of the upcountry style of traditional dancing. And this is Manika, belonging to Mrs. Shriyani Gunawardhana of Dangmovita. And next, following Manika, we now see a Charmander Dance act that is once again represented by the female artists, that is itself the unique feature of the Shrimah Pattini Devala procession. Just like how we saw the color yellow being used in the procession of god Nata, the color blue being used in the procession of god Vishnu, red in the procession of god Kataragama, we are seeing a mixture of the shades white and yellow being used in the procession of goddess Pattini, as it is believed that the color of goddess Pattini is a mixture of white and yellow, as described by the term Shwetavarnya in Sinhalese. And following that beautiful dance act, we are reaching the end and the last item of this evening's fourth Kumbal Perahera, the arrival of the ceremonial elephant carrying the godly ornaments and statue of goddess Pattini. And this ceremonial elephant is being guarded by his accomplices and escorted by these majestic Nayandi dancers, who are being led by Mithun Bandara of the Mithun Bandara Aesthetic Academy of Vatapulla. While these majestic Nayandi dancers pave way, we see the cart of incense spreading the fragrance as respect and offering towards the godly ornaments of goddess Pattini. And as the chief trustee of the Shrimah Pattini Devalaya walks in front, the ceremonial elephant Mangala, belonging to Mr. Udara Galapatti of Giriyulla, will be carrying the godly ornaments of goddess Pattini, and he is accompanied by Bandara belonging to Mrs. Vijayanti Perahera of Horana, and Manike belonging to Mr. H.R. Nishanka of Kegol. That marks the end of the fourth Kumbal Procession of the Kandy Esala Perahera 2022. We hope that our country will be blessed with fertility and rains. May our country prosper. Dalada Samidu Pihitai.